evening folks, and welcome to another helping of Mr H's Hot Pot. You join myself, Mrs H and the girls on a special helping of Hot Pot this evening, because this particular episode of Hot Pot marks my 200th video. So we've come to somewhere special. We've come to the Lincolnshire walls and we're having a look at an old RAF base from the Cold War. Now, the base I'm talking about was very secret during the Cold War until it was decommissioned in 1991. And the name of it is RAF Stenigot. And that was most famous for having 4 massive radar dishes which could be seen all around this area. Well, unfortunately, those radar dishes are quietly rusting in peace over there in that field. And that's what we're going to go over and take a little look at. Now, many urban explorers, this is one of the holy grails for them. Now, we came here in 2014, didn't we, Mrs H?
We did.
And we had a good walk round them. I don't think you can get to them anymore. You can get right up to the fence where they are, the field, but the farmer has rather wittily put a bull in there. And I don't fancy trying to outrun a bull, do you, Mrs H?
Not really.
Certainly not at almost 6 months pregnant. So we're going to make our way towards them now because they're about 60 foot in size, so you can't miss them even if you're just over the fence type of thing. So, without further ado, let's make our way to those dishes. So we've made it to the field where these dishes are now lying in, and as you can see, they've been dragged right up to the boundary of the fence. This field here was part of our RAF Stenigot. Now, the reason these dishes are lying where they are today is that when the site was decommissioned in 1991, obviously what the Ministry of Defence would do, they would what they call dispose of the sites, which means they'd sell them off privately or hand the deeds back to the original owners. And when these dishes was actually in situ, which I'll put a photograph in for you now, as you can see from that photograph, they was on the edges. And they sold them off for scrap. And some guy actually bought these with the intention of cutting them up and shipping them off. Whether he bought them at auction or not, I don't know. But anyway, there was his property. He bought them and then realised it's going to cost me more to chuff and cut them up and transport them away than I'm going to get on scrap. So they got dragged here 20 years ago and just left. And that's why they're here to this day. So it's a shame, really. I mean, they must have looked really huge when you came up to them, but you wouldn't have got this close back in the day, really, I don't think, simply because it was a prohibited site, which meant you couldn't come round it, and especially with it being secret type of thing. But yeah, those dishes would have given us early warning if there was a Russian attack by the military, their Air Force. They wouldn't have seen if there would have been a rocket type of thing launched at us, only Air Force. Now, like I said, I'm not going to climb over this gate. There was a sign on here a few years back stating there was a bull. You can see where it's been drilled on now. Whether somebody's broken that off or whatever, I don't know. But I'm not going to risk it going in there. Like I said, we did go in there in 2014, didn't we, Mrs H? We vaulted over this fence, no trouble. Dogs got underneath and ran straight over to them. So I'll stick some of those photos in there. We've not really got many photos from that period, but it'll give you an idea of how of what they look like close up. I think if I was to go in there with a camera and start going around them, I think we'd lose something, Mrs H, because they're just that big. Now on these arms here, as you can see, that are supporting the back of them, it does say NATO on them. Like I said, I did have some photos once of it, but we've since lost them, haven't we, Mrs H? Mm-hmm. Right then, I think I can get down the side of the fence there. So I'll make my way down there and take a look at them from a different angle. And there you go, that just shows you how big they are. I have a job to get them in shot there. Imagine that on the side of your wall trying to pull sky in. Now I'm surprised in over 20 years the farmer hasn't got down here, because if you'd come to it, got an acetylene torch on it, you'd have probably cut them down by now. But then again, there's probably all legal battles over them type of thing, because they are technically somebody else's property. As you can see, there's 4 of these in total. And they're just abandoned here in the field. Just forgotten. Now further up there, towards the back end, over that bush, is the rest of RAF Stenigot. And like I say, a lot of urban explorers come around here, and I think that's why the farmers got a little bit peeved and he's tried to make some way of stopping people coming in here, like myself. Just amazing, Cold War relics. Usually you only see something like this in the former Eastern European countries, you know, where they're just dumped and left in a field. Over here we tend to get rid of them and break them up. But these can be seen for miles around. And maybe after 20 odd years, they'd probably be classed as a listed thing if somebody did now come and try and cut them down. As you can see underneath there, you know, the big arms that would have supported them at one time. Those are the ones where I said earlier, they actually have NATO stamped on them. There was still some little bits of radio equipment attached to them, little bits of wires and that. But obviously souvenir hunters over time have gone and taken them away. I was once asked by one of my viewers, Mick Byrne, do I take little pieces back with me as souvenirs? And I had to say to him that no, I don't. I started doing that, but what tends to happen is you visit that many places, you end up with all kinds of junk. So unless the place is really special to me, you know, it's somewhere I've always wanted to visit, or I have a personal attachment to the building, such as my old primary school, no, I wouldn't take any souvenirs, because you just end up with an house full of junk. And I think the old urban exploration maxim is, you know, you take nothing but photographs and leave nothing but footprints. Right then, I'll make my way back to Mrs H now and give you a little bit of history about RAF Stenigot, and then we'll go and have a look at what few features are still left of this old former RAF base. Little clip there of a military aircraft just flying over. It's just a bit of a reminder there that this whole area, Lincolnshire and that, it's still very RAF dominated. Now, the former base behind me, which has now since been decommissioned, first started life in 1938 with the approach of the Second World War. And it started with the famous home chain radar system. Now, one of the towers is still here, which is a Grade 2 listed building. And right on the top of that is a monument to one of the people who erect these type of things. Now, no, Mr H is not going to climb up there, and there is no photographs of it on the internet, so unfortunately we just have to take the RAF's word for it, as it's still up there. Now, there was 4 of those towers originally, and they dismantled 3 of them, but left that one up. That one's still active and belongs to the RAF, and they use it for the training school, Mrs H, for the people who erect those type of radar towers. Now, it became a radar base in 1959 at the height of the Cold War, because obviously the home chain system was old and obsolete. So they re-kitted this base out with the radar dishes that we've just had a look at. Now, today there's not many of the old surface structures still around, but the old guardhouse that was at the entrance to the camp is still there, but it's now a private dwelling. But as we was coming past, I noticed 1 or 2 pillboxes and 1 or 2 little features. So we'll go round now, take a closer look at that massive aerial and at the former guardhouse of RAF Stenigot. Right then, we're just making our way back on the public footpath, which is this long road behind me. So should the farmer come, we're quite legal now. Now over there, across that field, is where the former camp was. It was like a sort of long oblong, the camp, and you can probably just make out in the distance there a large concrete bunker type thing. Obviously that was for communications and that. Them I think are a throwback to the Second World War. And then just, if you follow the edge along, you'll see like a little brick building. That definitely is a throwback to the Second World War, because that's one of the pillboxes. I think there was 6 in all around the camp during the Second World War. Whether or not those would have been manned when it became a radar station or not, I don't know. I should imagine there would have been a lot of military police around this area and people patrolling it. But then again, in the middle of nowhere, nobody would have known where it was. Remember, it was top secret at the time. Anyway, onto that tower, because that's what we're going to have a look at, isn't it, Mrs H?
It is.
So before we take a little look at the home chain radar tower, we'll take a look at the former entrance to RAF Stenigot. Now behind me is what was the guardhouse. Today it's a private dwelling, but it looked very, very different in 1991. No, this just looks like any ordinary semi-detached house. The only little giveaway is that pillbox there with all those cameras attached to it. Now obviously that's one of the original 6, and that's good because it's a nice close look at one of the pillboxes. Now I don't want to spend too much time gossiping in front of somebody's house, because as you can see there's cameras on there, and I'm sure the people who live in these 2 houses are fed up of people making films like this. So we'll move straight on to the radar tower. And these are the gates to that compound today. Little guardhouse behind there. I don't know if that's modern day built or whether that's original to this site. I think it was after this site had closed down and ceased to become an RAF base. You can just see how huge that tower is. It just seems to go on and on and on. I wouldn't like to think I was climbing up there. So there we are, folks. That brings us to the end of Mr H's 200th video. So until the next time, from myself, from Mrs H and from the girls who are tired now in the car, it is